Hello again, and welcome to our focus on focusing this week. So this week in Chapter 9, we are looking at focusing and broadening, contextualizing our client stories, right, and focusing the counseling session. So if you're thinking again about that nice little pyramid of skills that we're building on, so here we're looking at this next level where we are digging a bit deeper into the story our client is presenting to us into the counseling session, getting to pinpoint specific issues that our client may need to address within the counseling environment, and try to work toward understanding the complexities of our client stories, right? So when we're thinking about focusing, one way that I like to think about it, I'm kind of a visual person, so the types of focus, you can kind of imagine it as like a bullseye, like the Target bullseye, you know, who doesn't love a good Target bullseye, right? Like Target the store, of course. But so we've been talking a lot about focusing on the client being kind of the bullseye, right? The middle of the circle, the middle of the red part of the Target circle. So we've been talking a lot about focusing on the client, and our focus should be on the client during counseling sessions, right? That they're there to be working with us. We're providing them with a service. So that's where we have been examining our responses to clients, reflections of feelings, helping them explore their thoughts and their emotions, and what it all means when they all tie it together. So you kind of go outside of the bullseye, right? And so then we're looking at the client's issues, their concerns, their challenges. So this is getting a little bit further out from the client themselves, right? So here we're looking at, I give some examples, the terrible argument. The client mentions that they've had an argument with a significant other in the past week. So instead of focusing just on the client in that moment, we're kind of understanding, oh, that argument seems to have played a big role in how the rest of the week went for my client. Let's talk about the argument a little bit, right? If we're thinking about working with clients who are looking at job development or job placements, this might be that instead of maybe the client went out for an interview and it went really poorly. So then we're going to be looking at the interview portion of this, right? How did the client's interview go? What happened during that space? So thinking a little bit more broadly in the focus type of others. Okay, so this is in the broader context, and so these are kind of going outside of what I have been stressing, right? I've been stressing focus on the client. The focus is on the client. With the others category of the focus types, we're looking at the other people, the other key players in the client's frame of reference in their, so kind of moving through into the next slide, the types of others, right, quote unquote others. So this could be the people that the client surrounds himself with, their family, their friends, people that are friends that they consider to be family, key figures that are around them. This could be people that they come into contact with in their home environment, in school, in work, colleagues that they're interacting with and engaging with. So these are the people that we might take that second to say, okay, you had this argument with your significant other. Let's talk a bit about your significant other. So I tiptoe around this little area a little bit within 501 because, again, I want you to start honing your skills of focusing on the client and not the story, right? So a lot of times, especially as new counselors, you can get really wrapped up into the story, right? Being what the client's saying about something, you're getting kind of tied into it, like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next in this episode, right? Whereas we're supposed to be focusing on what the client's feelings, actions, behaviors were during those moments. So when we're looking at focusing on others that are playing key roles in the broader context, you don't want to go outside that bullseye and stay outside of it, okay? You want to learn what you need to know, broaden the story, broaden your understanding of the situation, of the event that occurred, so that you can have a better idea of where to go next, but then you're bringing it back into the client, okay? The text, as the title of the text, focusing on multicultural issues, would suggest, the Ivy and Falquette say they spend a good amount of time talking about social justice and advocacy as part of the focus when we're working with clients, especially and specifically with clients that come from populations that have been historically marginalized, historically oppressed. And so within when we're working with those client populations, it would behoove us. We have to start gaining a better understanding of how the others, how their culture, how their environment play a role in the broader picture. Okay, so with some examples that I'm kind of giving you here on slide 3 within the PowerPoint for this week. So these are going to be those questions that we might not sit as comfortably with as new counselors, but we need to be asking them again so we can understand our client situation better, how they identify, how their environment has played a role in the bigger picture. So we might be asking about spiritual orientation. We might be asking about religious beliefs and values. We might be asking how being a woman or a man or a gay man or a gay woman or whatever somebody identifies as or however they identify, how that plays into a situation, how being a minority might play into the situation. So that's kind of that area where we have to understand where our limitations are. We have to have that, again, awareness of our worldview, our values, our beliefs, and how they play a role in our understanding of our client's situation, but then be asking those critical questions of our clients so that we truly understand where they're coming from, their point of view. So when we're thinking about mutual focus, so these, again, I'm kind of getting us into a world of discomfort, okay? And I put a good amount of information within the module on self-disclosure. So I'm sure, you've heard from others at some point, don't ever self-disclose. Don't talk about yourself in a counseling session. Don't do it. It's bad. It's a bad practice to get into. And it to a certain degree it is, but self-disclosure can be very important in a counseling, in the development of a therapeutic alliance with our clients, because it helps our clients, if we're doing it appropriately in the right way and not making it about ourselves, it helps our clients see that they're not alone in a situation, that somebody else has had the same type of experience that they're going through and came out of it in a certain way, that you actually have some understanding of their point of view because you've lived it. Your lived experience is similar to their lived experience. So self-disclosure is necessary in some cases, is very helpful when done appropriately, but we have to know how to do it and we have to practice it to know how to do it, okay? So when you get on campus, feel free to practice the self-disclosure and the role plays, right? That's the best time to do it because I'll be able to sit there and say, yeah, you did that well, or you really shared too much of that. So, so we're thinking about focusing on mutuality, that would be kind of, again, taking it to a deeper level of discomfort typically for a new counselor. So this is where you are basically asking your client, because you can feel some tension, maybe you can feel some hesitancy to be working with you or just to discuss a topic. So you as the counselor, because you can feel it too, because we can feel emotions, right? This is the art of the counseling. So we are putting ourselves out there as the counselor to say, you know what, something just feels a little bit off today with us, us being myself and a client, right? Something just feels off. What's going on? What's up with that? Do you feel it too? Do you feel like there's uneasiness here? Do you feel like we're not connecting? So that the discomfort with that comes because we have to be prepared for our clients to come back to us and say, yeah, I really feel uncomfortable with you today. And so we have to be able to know what to do with that type of response and how to process that with a client so that you can move past it ideally, or address it head on. So with kind of thinking about theoretical orientations, and I know we really haven't gotten too deep into theoretical orientations, so this is, again, not expecting you to know everything about the theoretical orientations and how focusing looks dependent on whatever counseling orientation you might be adhering to or looking towards to be your theoretical orientation. But for cognitive theories, cognitive behavior theory, just general cognitive theory, thoughts. We're focusing on a client's thoughts throughout the process of counseling. Behavioral counseling theories, of course, the behavior, function of behavior, where it's coming from, where it stems from, anything behavior related. Person-centered feelings. Feelings are huge in person-centered counseling. A lot of times counselors will kind of gravitate towards person-centered counseling, especially those early sessions, so that you have a better idea or understanding of what the client's full story is. And so there's a lot of reflection of feelings and broadening a story based on that person's feelings. Systems theories, that's a lot of the family systems theories that we think about. It's relationship context, so focusing a little bit more outside of the bullseye, the target, right, and focusing on somebody's relationships. Reality theories, theoretical orientations that are based on reality therapy. That's where we're looking at a client's wants, their desires, if they're getting them, if not, how, what's going, what steps do they need to take to get to those wants, the needs that they feel like they have. Solution focus, a lot of the focus is on the resources a client might internally have or intrinsically have, the strengths that they have, the ways in which they have changed behaviors, thoughts, whatever it might be in the past, and how you can pull upon those in the future. So that's kind of a really brief, broad overview of the theoretical part of it. But again, I keep saying, wait till we get on campus and you'll hear more, and we will. Just to kind of throw in a little bit about the social justice perspective, Paulo Freire, there's numerous ways people say this, but none of us are Portuguese, I don't think, in this room, so wrote a number of texts. He is a theorist, largely in educational pedagogy from Brazil. Pedagogy of the Press is one of the books that he wrote in his lifetime. So if we're thinking about broadening and contextualizing a story and taking into consideration social justice perspectives of our clients, looking at Paulo's it was called critical pedagogy, okay? So it's still called critical pedagogy, and I tried to find some videos on it, but I don't feel like you need to know the history of educational oppression in Brazil, so it was difficult for me to find something that really narrowed down what his main points were and how to apply it to the counseling world, okay? Because all of his work largely was focused on educational systems and shifting education. But from a counseling perspective, what we would be kind of saying essentially is that in general, our clients come to us and they're a member of an oppressed group, okay? And, taking the political context out of all of this, because I don't bring politics into classes typically unless it's really warranted, but clients come to us typically as a member of some type of marginalized group or a group that's been historically oppressed or marginalized, okay? So, and I say commonly, knowing that a lot of times the clientele that do go to private counseling sessions are that kind of middle class variety, right? But so if we're anyway, I digress, but if we're thinking about counseling from a social justice perspective, if we're thinking about our clients coming to us and feeling as if they have been oppressed in some way or have been oppressed, that's their perception, that's their worldview, that's their lived experience is feeling oppressed. And then we kind of, on the other side of it, clients can even play a role as an oppressor. But typically in thinking about broadening and contextualizing a story and considering others as part of a client's story, society, employers, educators to a degree, politicians, there's systematic oppression, institutionalized oppression. So all of these entities would be considered the others. And so from this kind of theoretical perspective, social justice perspective, what Paulo was trying to say is that the clients, in our case as counselors, clients must come to this understanding of why things are happening around them. It's a high level of understanding about the world around themselves, okay? How these different forces have played a role into their in their current situation, and how they can have motivation within themselves as a member of an oppressed group to elicit change within their communities, within their environments, but it comes first with the recognition that they have been oppressed in some way, and then on the other side of it, the oppressors acknowledging that the oppression has happened and being willing to combat that in their own way, to self-reflect. And so this is kind of that development of a critical consciousness on the side of the oppressors, to understand that, yes, I have played a role in the overall oppression of this particular group because of my actions, values, my inactions in some cases, things I haven't been willing to do. And so as counselors, we can think of our role as advocates, okay? So we have a voice in some cases where our clients may not feel like they do. We have the ability to go to, city council members, to go to state legislatures, to picket and to try to enact policy change because we have privilege. We have privilege. We're because of the level of education you've attained, because of your work status, because of who you might be or how you might identify in other ways, you have that ability to become an advocate on behalf of clients. So when we're thinking about advocacy and different levels of advocacy, we can advocate with our client. We can teach our clients ways to self-advocate, which is, kind of that you can teach a man, you can get a man to fish or teach a man to fish or whatever that saying is. But so teaching our clients how to self-advocate is very powerful. And so that's part of this development of a critical consciousness, right, is teaching our clients about how these other forces may have contributed to their oppressed state in this kind of theoretical framework. But and then we can advocate on behalf of our clients. So that's kind of a different level of advocacy. So that's doing things for the betterment of our clients. And then in a different way, we can advocate for our profession, advocate for ourselves. And so we see that, and we'll talk more about that in the 600 class, about how professional advocacy can do things like make sure that our licensure laws are distributed equally among counselors and social workers and everybody else that might see clients, to make sure that we are getting an equal seat at the table during hiring practices in the federal government. So there's professional advocacy that's a whole different level, and then there's kind of a even higher level of advocacy, which is advocating in a political arena or in a public arena, and that's kind of what I think a lot of people traditionally think of when they think of advocacy, enacting change at the highest level possible, policy changes and things of that nature. So I hope that wasn't terribly confusing. Like I said, it's difficult to kind of condense it all, although I did want to mention kind of the social justice perspective because our text talks about it to a greater extent as well. So with that, I will leave you to review all the information that I provided about self-disclosure. Again, come into all of this with an open mind. I don't want to make it seem like you should be self-disclosing at every opportunity that you get. There should be a good reason to self-disclose when you do it. It should not be about you, right? It should never be about us if we're self-disclosing. It's all about the client, and there needs to be a purpose. So if you're thinking about, if you self-disclose in a counseling session or even a mock session, when you reflect on that afterwards, think about, why did I say that? What was the benefit of saying what I said about myself in that moment? And if you don't have a really good answer for that, if it doesn't seem like it was really necessary, then it probably wasn't good to self-disclose in that moment. But if it really did help move the client forward, it helped strengthen that foundational therapeutic relationship, that therapeutic alliance that you might have with the client, a lot of times self-disclosure can be beneficial. Also, clients ask us questions. They ask us if we for me, I can't recall how many times I got asked if I had a disability. So they will ask you questions because they want to know. They'll ask you if you had kids, if you've been married, if you've been divorced, if you are in recovery, you name it, they'll probably ask you. So part of understanding when and how to self-disclose is tied into how to respond to a client when they're asking us those types of personal questions. So I think that's all. That's all I've got for you. And just so you know, I will continue to get to look at the baseline videos. It does take me a little bit of time to get through them, but hold tight. I promise I'll get you the feedback soon. All right, everybody, have a good week.